Now then, the night the chauffeur... The night the chauffeur was killed, what was the chauffeur's name?
Miguel.
Miguel, yes.
No, Miguel.
Miguel?
Miguel.
Well, this Italian...
Well, he was a Spaniard.
Well, this Spaniard, Miguel, he was furious with Maria Gambrelli. He tore her dress off. He protested violently, and then...
Oh, my foot!
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I beg your pardon. I did not notice him. Excuse me. He tore her dress off, and at that precise moment, the door opened, and somebody shot him. Now, Maria could not see who the killer was because she was unconscious. And the reason that she was unconscious was that she had received a bump upon the head.
A what?
A bump. Received a bump upon the head.
Oh!
A bump.
Huh!
Received a bump upon the head. A bump. Received a bump upon the head.
Oh!
A bump. Received a bump upon the head.
I received a bump the other day. Oh! I'll get that back later on. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Melbourne Musos Face Chukkaries Live. I got the bump. I got a bump. I was looking down. I was going, what? I didn't even feel it. But how come all this... They got a bit, I must be a bit of a bleeder. As my friend Marcus said when I wanted a bit of sympathy. So I thought... Inspiration comes from the strangest places, from the bumps. Okay, now, what I thought I might talk about tonight is some wonderful, a wonderful album that I've always found fascinating, and I'd like to talk about it a little bit, and then talk about the man and all that sort of business right here. I've got it on vinyl. I've got a lot of vinyl here tonight. But Miles Davis's On the Corner album. Oh, what a funky album this one is. Okay, released in 1972. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit. And one of the things about this, it was in that, towards the real Electric Miles period, all that. I've got all those albums here, and I'll bring them up in just a little bit. But what I'd like to do is actually talk about... Now, what I've got here... I've got my bass drum, but I have some, what have I got here tonight? I've got the Asian kit. Getting a bit of a sound happening because Miles Davis On the Corner had a lot of musicians on it. And I shall start reading now, and then I'm going to show you a couple of little grooves, all this biz, and some of the influences that created that album. Okay, so I've got the old things here. I'll get to reading, and then I'll get to a bit more playing. Get a few things happening here. On the Corner. Oi! Oh, I don't need an inset. I've got it. Oi! There it is there. Oi! On the Corner is a studio album by American jazz trumpeter, bandleader, and composer Miles Davis. It was recorded in June and July 1972 and released on October the 11th on the same year by Columbia Records. The album continued Davis's exploration of jazz fusion. It wasn't even called that in those days. It was called jazz rock. And explicitly drew on the influence of funk musicians Sly Stone and James Brown. You can really feel that there. The experimental music of Karlheinz Stockhausen. The free jazz of Ornette, Coleman, and the work of collaborator Paul Buckmaster. Now, one of the things that happens with this, if I keep going with the recording sessions, the musicians were not named. on the album deliberately, so that the music shone through and all this biz. Essentially, there's a paragraph here. On the Corner was in part an effort by Davis to reach a younger African-American audience who had largely left jazz for funk and rock music. Instead, thanks to Columbia's lack of target marketing, it was one of Davis's worst-selling albums, as it was scorned by jazz critics at the time of its release. It would be Davis's last studio album of the 1970s, conceived as a complete work. Subsequently, he recorded haphazardly and focused instead on live performance before temporarily retiring from music in 1975. Now, next paragraph. Critical and popular reception of On the Corner has improved dramatically with the passage of time. Many outside the jazz community later called it an innovative musical statement and forerunner to subsequent funk, jazz, post-punk, electronica, and hip-hop. In 2007, On the Corner was reissued as part of a 6-disc box set, the complete On the Corner sessions. That's this album here. And what goes on is, on this album, over the last months, I've talked about Jack DeJohnette. I did that just the other week, and the TV show, The 900th, was on Wednesday night. So I was talking about Jack DeJohnette along with Carl LeBlay and Manfred Eicher of ECM Records. A few months ago, I was talking about Billy Cobham. Now, they're both on the album, okay? But the chap I want to talk about is one Al Foster. And what Al Foster had when, for the remainder of the Electric Miles things, he's not necessarily on every one of these, but I might as well bring him up. This is the time of Dark Magus. Got to say it like that. Aghata, that's a great thing. Just starts off, bang, Al Foster, beautiful. Pangea, beautiful. Black Beauty, I don't think he's on that one, but this is the whole Electric Miles period. Al Foster, incredible groove, unsung hero of the Miles Davis time. When Miles Davis came back with the Man with the Horn, Al Foster was with him right up until the early 80s, I think. And there you go. Now, what it is, I'll get stuck straight into it. What happens is that one of the great tracks on the Corner is the first one. And it's On the Corner, New York Girl, thinking one thing, doing another. And one of the things about it, it's like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 1 E and a 2 E. And it just kept going like that, and it's around about 116 beats a minute. That kind of thing there. Now, this lends itself to something that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, when you're getting a funky. There you go, you see. Now what starts to happen with that is that when you're dealing with this, you're starting to get a little bit of busy sticking a la paradiddles and stuff. I was talking about this with Jack DeJohnette, a few other people. And I'm going to continue on with this, but I'm going to go a little bit further. Why not?
Receive the burp on the head. A burp. 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 Receive the burp on the head. A burp.
Received a bump. I got a little bump on the head. And that's where this show came from. And that's what goes on. Now, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about this album, and that takes me out to a few other dear people. There you go. Recording and production, recording sessions for On the Corner began in June 1972. Both sides of the record consisted of repetitive drum and bass grooves based around a one-chord modal approach, with the final cut culled from hours of jams featuring changing personal lineups underpinned by bassist Michael Henderson. Other musicians involved in the recording include guitarist John McLaughlin. I did that the other day, the overtone scale, which he did out of my Mahavishnu book up there. Drummers Jack DeJohnette, Billy Hart, also Al Foster, sorry about that, and keyboardists Herbie Hancock, is the bermp, I tell you, the bermp, and keyboards Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea. It keeps on going like that. There you go. And now, what happens is one of the things that started to happen, especially with a track on there called Black Satin, had the segments of tabla and sitar. That's why I had little things like that, even though it is a bit Chinese there, but that's why I was sort of doing it like that. Now, one of the things is one of his longtime producer was Tio Makero, and he was employing cut and splice tape editing procedures, which he had first employed on In a Silent Way. I didn't pull that out of the vinyl, but I've got it there. Macaro's tape editing was informed by his experience with avant-garde and electronic composers such as Edgard Varese and Vladimir Ussachevsky in the 50s and 60s and all that. And one of the other things that he talked about was Mr. Karlheinz Stockhausen, for which I have these two. I have Sirius Stockhausen, and then the Schottluck, Kreuzspiel, Kontrapunkt, Zeitmaß, and Adieu. Sounds very Rammstein, but there you go, that's Stockhausen. Now, this is pretty out there, and in the day, you've got to remember that in the early 70s and all that, into the late 60s, Stockhausen also influenced the Dear Beatles. If you're listening to Sgt. Pepper, you're listening to techniques straight out of the Book of Stockhausen. Okay, so there's all that biz there. And that's one of the things that I did here, is when I go to this little app called Scritino, that's where this comes from. Now it's an app. So if I've got that going, the noise underneath, you got sort of, and bring that down to today with some of the real dark, some of the dark trance stuff, you got that. Stuff like that, you see. Now I'm going to talk about these techniques a little bit. There you go. Now, when we're doing On the Corner and the opening kind of 1E and a 2E and a 3E and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and 4, single stroke roll, here's this little beat that I've been sort of, I sort of like it, sort of thing. The bass drum doesn't hit 1 unless I want it to. And what it is 1E and a 2E and a. Don't mind the funny sound. I got the trigger over the top of the bass drum. 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a, 1E and a, 2E and a. Then my left hand goes to the snare drum, playing ghost notes, you see. And then you mix it up, and then you're getting into your paradiddly doodly business there, you see. One and a 2 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a episode, I think probably the last thing that I did had the 1 on it. 1 and 2 again. See, no 1. 1 again, 2 again, 3 again, 4. What I am doing is putting a little bit of an accent. That's what I'm doing. That's my anchor. Now I am on 1. Contrast. Ah, there you go. There it is. The bermp. I'm not doing this because I have a concussion. I play like this all the time. There's a joke. Someone's telling a joke about me there. Yeah, I know why. That's why you can't bloody get a gig. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. Al Foster. Oh, that band was super funky during those days of the Electric Miles things. And the Aghata and Dark Magus and I've got to look. I'm going blank. It is the bermp. What was it? Pangea. That's right. Just starts off. Oh, beautiful. There you go. So that's Al Foster. That's my little thing for him. There you go. And so what's going on is that there's that. And one of the other things that Miles Davis was talking about was he was talking about, and as I said, with Tio Macero and all, splicing, editing, using the techniques of Edgar Varese. I've done shows on him. Karlheinz Stockhausen, I've done shows on him. And they're actually using that technique of the late 60s and the 70s, even though Varese was going right back to the 50s with tape, poem electronic and all that sort of stuff. And with Edgar Varese, the mad scientist, of course, there's a reference back to Zappa, you see. He's Zappa's favourite composer. And I was doing Quinlan Nancaro and Harry Partch just the other episode. So, boop, it all links in together. You don't need a boomp on the head to work it out, I tells you. So what goes on is that when you're doing this kind of stuff, and then you mix it in with what Miles was listening to, Miles Davis was listening to with Sly Stone, James Brown, because there was this big shift towards funk in the early 70s, sort of thing. We know it, like the Meters with Sissy Strut and everything else that's going on. All that, the big melting pot. And then he started to lay that over the top. Wow, there you go, fantastic times. And what Miles Davis would talk about is that he wanted his pieces to sort of flow into others. So when you're listening to some of those albums, it's almost like morphing. Morphing into another groove, and while that groove's going, he starts another melody with slower trumpet, or he puts the wah, he puts his trumpet through the electronics and stuff, and it's just like going through corridors, just floating through that sort of business, and they're mesmerizing. And there's the legacy there. I've got a bunch of apps, that kind of thing. Brian Eno, I use his apps, and I've got the Scritino one, and this is the kind of thing. And this is something that even Robert Fripp does with his Frippatronics and stuff with Brian Eno, all that. Now, when you're actually getting funky and thinking about Sly Stone, all this and all the Funkmeisters there, you've got that. I believe the joke I'd used the other week with 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Dance to that. Boom. Zip bump. And then when you're doing things like tape loops and stuff, we have samplers. So when I've got this...
Receive the bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Receive the bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Receive the bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Receive the bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Receive the
a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. You see, when you're starting to do, back in the day, I had my reel-to-reel tape deck. I had a TAC A3440 and I got good with the little splicer. Ooh, and the special tape. You don't use normal sticky tape when you splice. You've got to do the special tape, otherwise it gets all gungy in the heads and you're cooked, mate, cooked. And so what goes on is that now we have samplers and you can start, the start and the end and all that sort of stuff. And then, as you know, I do these things. I used to do Get on the Beers. That's redundant now. But what happens is...
Receive the bump upon the head. A what? A bump.
Bump is 1.
Receive the bump upon the head. A what?
1, 2, 3, 4.
A bump.
3, 2, 3, 4.
Receive the bump upon the head.
3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3,
Receive
4,
the
1.
bump upon the head.
3 bar 3. And then you paradiddly-doodly it up, you see. So when you're starting to do that... Oh, the hi-hat. Oh! I've done this little lick before. What happens is if you're playing quavers a la Johnny Bonham, and then... Paradiddle. Slow it down. Then you mix it up, you get quick little 16th opens, you see, and like that, because you're getting in between. D little pert one. In the in-betweeners, there you go. Oh, the bump, I better get a wriggle on. I'm starting to run out of time here. So, one other thing that he did, Miles Davis did with On the Corner, this is the thing that I try and do with the show overall. One thing leads to another. So when I'm talking about a funky album that's been reappraised, like people didn't like it when it came out, that's quite a common thing. You could call it a sleeper. And then all of a sudden it got reappraised and, oh, hang on, that's one of the best things he's ever done. Look at all these techniques he's using, and look at all these wonderful people playing, and look at all these drummers, oh my Lord. And Al Foster, as I said, there you go. So when I talk about things like that, one of the things that he does here is Miles Davis wasn't the biggest fan of Ornette Coleman, who started off free jazz. My joke with that is I used to play free jazz because no one paid us. And but what it was his big thing was the theory of harmolodic, the harmolodic theory. I'm going to try and find that for you now. Hang on one second. Coleman defined harmolodics as the use of the physical and the mental of one's own logic made into an expression of sound to bring about the musical sensation of unison executed by a single person or with a group. I've got a James Blood Ulmer album out the back and I love it. And I didn't know it at the time, but then I checked it because of the research today, and he does harmolodics as well. Now that sounds like gobbledygook. Please check it out, and there's that kind of thing. Here it is, here, the Wikipedia version. I'll read that to you before I love and leave you. Harmolodics is a musical philosophy and method of musical composition and improvisation developed by American jazz saxophonist composer Ornette Coleman. His work following this philosophy during the late 1970s and 80s inspired a style of forward-thinking jazz funk known as harmolodic funk. It is associated with avant-garde jazz and free jazz. Hope they get paid. Although its implications extend beyond these limits, Coleman also used the name Harmolodic for both his first website and his record label. Now, that's as clear as mud to a lot of you, but what it is, it's more, instead of sticking to a particular mode or a particular scale, you're talking about a rhythmic line, sticking to that, or a certain melodic line, which may or may not be, may or may not be that. One of the things that I do with this is that whatever note I play, this is a Leonard Bernstein thing. Whatever note I play, that's the note. There it is. But as soon as you do that second note, that's where the composition will go, because you could have a tonal note, something within the scale, or you could go atonal. One of the things about Miles Davis, I said it on a post the other night, one of the things when I actually saw him live back at the concert hall around 1988, and it was like the penny dropped, I got it, because I saw him looking and leading the band and stuff. Now remember that Miles Davis wasn't the biggest fan of Ornette Coleman at one point, and Ornette Coleman went through a lot of controversy when he first started, with people like Don Cherry and Billy Higgins and the drummer, and Charlie Hayden on bass. People like that, they're fantastic. But went through a lot of, a bit like Cecil Taylor, and that kind of thing. And what happened was I saw it, and he'd just start with a note. But one of the things about that is that when you're dealing with, say, a chromatic scale, all 12 notes, no matter what mode or scale you are, you're only going to be one. If you play something that's not in the scale, you're only one semitone away from the note. And even like people would say, wow, what's that note? Yuck. And then all of a sudden he resolves it. And it's a bit like a half bend from Eddie Van Halen or someone else like that, or a Jeff Beck, that kind of stuff. And it's gone, that's what it is. And next thing you know, oh my Lord, that kind of thing. That's what it is. I better think about it, but I think about wrapping it up. But I did have one other thing, because now that I'm talking about Ornette Coleman and the harmolodic theory and stuff, and the time that happened, and all the controversy, at the same time was this. Now I'm thinking this.
Big Bad Wolf was really bad. He wanted to play music and he wanted to play bad. He stopped me before I could go to town.
That's what they thought it was.
Big Bad Wolf was really bad. He wanted to play music and he wanted to play bad. He stopped me before I could go to town.
Pop and pop and. Oh, it's a bump. Oh, there you go. You see, so that's what it is. That's a bit timely, because a lot of people thought, oh, he plays like the Big Bad Wolf.
Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump.
I love and leave you now. Hey, I love you all. I'll have this up tomorrow.
A bump.
Oh,
Received a bump
plugs.
upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump. Received a bump upon the head. A what?
Hey!
A bump.
Oh!
Received a bump upon the head. A what? A bump.
Now, there is only one way that she could have received a bump like that. She was hit upon the head by an object, and the object was the knob on the closet door. Somebody was hiding in that closet, and when they opened the door, she received a bump upon the head.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Inspector, come to the point.
Don't tangle words with me.
Ow! You clumsy idiot!
Sorry, I'm terribly sorry, madame. No, no. Oh! Oh, those feathers. Oh, I'm coming, Maria, my darling. My darling. Oh. Careful, monsieur, with me. Do not tangle with me. I'm a trained expert in karate. My hands are lethal weapons.